Listen to me. I feel the Spirit moving right now, and I must ask you, are you ready to hear a message that will shake the very foundations of your life? This is not ordinary, this is not a drill. Archangel Michael is sounding the alarm, and the heavens are shifting. Just like Gideon in the Bible, who faced an army with only a handful of men, God is calling you to rise, to stand, and to see beyond what your eyes perceive. The enemy wants you distracted, but God wants you awake. Your breakthrough is closer than you think, and your moment of divine intervention is at hand. And what I'm about to reveal to you about this could shift your perspective forever. But you must watch this video until the very end. Don't skip, listen carefully, because this is where it begins. The divine alarm has sounded, and it is not a distant echo. It is a clarion call piercing through the ordinary hum of your life. Archangel Michael is not a figure of myth. He is the warrior of God, the defender of the faithful, the one who stands at the threshold of heaven and earth. When he speaks, it is not casual. When he moves, it shakes the foundations of spiritual reality. And today the sound of that alarm is reaching you. You may not see the flames or hear the trumpet, but the Spirit is whispering in ways only a prepared heart can hear. We live in a world that numbs the senses, that trains us to ignore the subtle currents of the unseen. We scroll, and life passes by while the universe waits for our attention. Yet here at this moment there is a call that cannot be ignored. There is urgency woven into the fabric of time itself, and it is as though the cosmos is leaning closer to whisper, "Wake up. The moment is now." Archangel Michael's message is a spiritual alarm, one that cannot be postponed, one that demands response. Consider the times in Scripture when the alarm was sounded, when God's messengers pressed their message upon the unprepared. Noah heard the warnings of the flood long before the waters rose. He didn't argue, he didn't delay. Abraham heard the call to leave the familiar and journey into the unknown. Each step was a response to a message that required immediate action. In each story, urgency was the difference between preservation and peril, between blessing and missed opportunity. The same principle applies to you today. The warning you are receiving, though it may seem intangible, carries the weight of eternity. It is not enough to feel stirred. Feeling stirred is cheap. It is the flirtation of spirit with distraction. No, this is a summons to awaken. Archangel Michael's intervention is not about minor inconveniences. It is about life-altering, destiny-defining shifts. The alarm is a signal that the spiritual realm is moving in ways that demand your alignment. To ignore it is to invite chaos, not because God punishes, but because the currents of life are moving and resistance to them brings collision. What does it mean practically for you? It means a heightened awareness, a conscious listening to the inner voice that says, prepare. It means examining the corners of your life where complacency has nested. It means taking up your spiritual vigilance, your faith sharpened like a sword. The alarm calls for a disciplined heart, a ready mind, a life attuned to divine timing. It calls for action before the emergency escalates into calamity, for a wisdom that is quick, discerning, and unshakable. And yet there is comfort in this alarm, for the same force that warns also protects. Michael is not merely a herald of urgency, he is a shield, a guide, a divine strategist, ensuring that those who respond with obedience move unscathed through the storm. The alarm is not meant to terrify, it is meant to awaken. It is the voice that says, "You are not alone." Step forward in faith, and in stepping forward, the invisible hand of providence begins to unfold, leading you into alignment with what was always meant to be yours. So do not shrink from the sound. Do not dismiss it as coincidence or imagination. The alarm is ringing for you, and it is your choice whether to heed or to sleep. The hour has come when spiritual awareness is not optional, when vigilance is not a luxury. Archangel Michael's message cuts through the noise because the stakes are too high for complacency. This is the clarion call of destiny itself. And as you stand here in this moment, recognize that the divine alarm is a gift disguised as urgency. It is an invitation to awaken, to align, and to step boldly into the life that has always been your potential. Do not underestimate the significance of listening, of responding, of moving when the signal is clear. The emergency is real, the call is real, and the opportunity to act is immediate. And so as you leave this awareness, let it be settled in your heart. The alarm has sounded, and those who answer will find themselves carried forward unharmed, guided, and victorious. The question is not whether the alarm exists, it is whether you will rise when it calls. The alarm has sounded. Will you move or will you sleep? Let's speak plainly. If the divine alarm has sounded, then it is no longer enough to sit in passive faith. The battle you face is real and the enemy is not political. The armor of God is not metaphor. It is a framework for survival, a spiritual toolkit given to you so that you may stand unshaken. Ephesians 6 tells us to gird ourselves, but how often do we treat this as a ritual rather than a reality? To activate your spiritual armor is to recognize that every thought, every word, every action must be intentional, aligned with the truth of God's word. You are not walking alone, but you must walk prepared. Consider the soldier who goes into battle without protection. He is vulnerable, exposed, and ultimately defeated. In spiritual terms, this is the person who prays occasionally, reads scripture when convenient, and hopes for divine intervention without fully stepping into their responsibility. The armor is not decoration, it is a call to vigilance. The belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, each is a practical tool, a spiritual lever that allows you to navigate a world saturated with forces intent on your distraction and derailment. The belt of truth, for instance, is not merely knowing facts, it is embodying integrity, aligning every choice with what is real and unchanging. How often do we allow lies, deception, and half-truths to thread through our lives, weakening our stance without even noticing? Truth fastens everything together. Without it, the armor cannot hold. The breastplate of righteousness is more than moral effort. It is the cultivation of a heart that protects the soul, a shield against the corrosive attacks of shame, fear, and death. When righteousness becomes a living principle in your life, it deflects the blows that would otherwise wound your spirit. Faith functions as the large shield. Not a fragile hope, but a faith that anticipates the unseen, that trusts in the unseen hand guiding every step. When doubts arise, when fear whispers that you are alone, the shield of faith intercepts the attack. Salvation, represented by the helmet, is the assurance of your identity in God. It guards your mind against confusion, discouragement, and despair. The sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, is both offensive and defensive. It pierces lies, exposes deception, and clears a path where there seems to be none. But here is the critical point: it is not enough to possess these pieces intellectually. You must wear them, carry them, breathe them into your daily existence. Activation is action. The armor is strongest when it is used with awareness, prayer, and discernment. This is not theory. The moment the enemy senses hesitation or laxity, he strikes. And the alarm we have heard, Archangel Michael's warning, is precisely about avoiding that delay, about stepping fully into preparation so that when chaos arises, you are not merely surviving, you are standing firmly, capable of moving forward with clarity and power. Preparation in armor is also relational. It shapes the way you interact with others, the way you respond to crises, and the way you maintain inner peace. Armor does not isolate, it equips. It allows you to be courageous where courage is scarce, to speak truth where lies are loud, to act decisively where fear would freeze you. It is the infrastructure of your spiritual resilience. Every morning you rise, you have a choice: to walk as defenseless, reacting to circumstances, or to suit up intentionally, to step into life armored, aware, and aligned. The beauty of this armor is that it is not limited by circumstance. It functions whether the storm is visible or invisible, whether the attack is physical, emotional, or spiritual. When activated with faith, the armor channels divine strength, making the wearer not only impervious to defeat but also a conduit of light and protection for others. The battle may rage, but those who wear it move through with a presence that cannot be ignored, a presence grounded in divine truth, guided by righteousness, shielded by faith, secured by salvation, and armed with the Spirit. So if the alarm has sounded, this is your next step. Do not delay. Put on the armor fully, engage every piece with intention. Walk through the world not timidly but confidently, because preparation is not passive, it is living, active, unrelenting. The enemy will test, the storms will rise, but you will stand unshaken, fully equipped to face what comes next. And remember, those who suit up today will not only survive the battle, they will define the victory. The armor is yours. Wear it, step forward, stand, let us pause here and speak plainly about discernment. In a world full of noise, distraction, and endless input, the ability to discern what is truly from God is not optional. It is essential. Archangel Michael's warning is clear, but how often do we mistake subtle divine nudges for ordinary thought? How often do we dismiss those inner stirrings as coincidence or imagination? The enemy thrives in our confusion, feeding us distractions, half-truths, and the illusion that nothing is urgent. Discernment is the lens that allows you to see clearly amidst the chaos, to distinguish the divine signal from the worldly static. Without it, even the clearest alarm can go unheard. Discernment begins with presence. It requires a mind that is still enough to hear, a spirit that is attentive enough to notice. Consider Elijah on Mount Carmel. The prophets of Baal shouted and danced, but it was in the still quiet whisper that he recognized the voice of God. Divine communication often comes not in the clamorous roar but in subtle, persistent nudges that demand awareness. To ignore these prompts is to risk missing the very instructions that could alter the course of your life. We are bombarded daily by competing voices, society, media, peers, even our own fears. Each one clamors for attention, and without discernment we begin to confuse the chatter for guidance. The world teaches us to follow impulse, to chase urgency without substance, to react to appearances rather than realities. But Michael's warning reminds us that there is a higher order at work, a spiritual orchestration that requires attentive. Discernment is the skill that allows you to separate the transient from the eternal, the noise from the message. But discernment is not merely about listening, it is about testing. Godly signals must align with truth, integrity, and the principles of divine wisdom. This is why the Bible repeatedly instructs believers to attest the spirits and weigh every word. A prompting that encourages fear, deception, or harm is not from God. A nudge that aligns with righteousness, clarity, and courage is worth pursuing, even if it challenges comfort or convenience. Discernment is the tool that keeps you from being led astray while sharpening your awareness of what is necessary, urgent, and divinely mandated. Practical discernment requires daily practice. It demands prayer, reflection, and honest self-examination. It is the willingness to pause before action, to seek clarity before decision, and to trust that the Spirit will illuminate the right path. Imagine a sailor navigating through stormy seas. Without instruments, without attention to the stars, without constant vigilance, the ship drifts toward danger. Discernment is the compass of the soul, guiding you through the unseen currents, ensuring that when the storm comes, you move not by chance but by conscious alignment with divine direction. Discernment also protects your energy and focus. The distractions of life can scatter your attention and weaken your spiritual posture. When you cultivate the ability to distinguish between urgent divine signals and mere noise, you conserve your strength, focus your efforts, and act with precision. It allows you to say a no to what is irrelevant, to step aside from what is deceptive, and to move decisively in the direction that matters. In this way, discernment is both a shield and a tool, guarding against missteps while guiding toward your destiny. Consider how many opportunities, how many warnings, how many divine instructions go unnoticed simply because the person is too distracted, too busy, or too enamored with the temporary. The alarm sounded by Archangel Michael is a wake-up call to sharpen your perception. It is an invitation to train your spirit to recognize what matters, to respond with clarity, and to act decisively when the signal is unmistakable. Those who cultivate discernment move through life with awareness, courage, and a sense of spiritual alignment that others rarely achieve. So hear this: discernment is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the key to understanding the urgency of the moment, the difference between action and delay, the clarity that allows you to navigate life without being pulled into confusion. When you develop it, when you honor it, you can move with confidence even amidst chaos, knowing that your steps are guided and protected. And in the end, discernment is what allows the alarm to be heard clearly, to be acted upon without hesitation, and to transform warning into opportunity. Those who cultivate it do not stumble, they see, they understand, and they move in alignment with what is real, what is urgent, and what is eternal. Discernment is the difference between being swept away by noise and standing firmly in truth. Will you cultivate it, or will you continue to drift? Let's talk about the power of immediate obedience, because this is where faith becomes tangible. It is one thing to hear a warning, to recognize urgency, to sense the movement of the Spirit, but it is another entirely to act without hesitation. Scripture is filled with stories of those who responded instantly, and the outcomes were nothing short of miraculous. Abraham, when called to leave everything familiar, did not negotiate, he did not stall, he moved. Or understanding, he built the ark. Immediate obedience is the bridge between divine instruction and divine fulfillment. Delay, on the other hand, often invites unnecessary struggle, missed opportunity, and the amplification of obstacles. Obedience is not passive, it is action rooted in truth. It is saying yes to what you do not yet fully see, to step forward when the outcome is uncertain, and to move according to the whisper of God rather than the loud voices of fear and doubt. When the Spirit speaks and the alarm sounds, hesitation is the enemy's ally. It gives time for distraction to creep in, for confusion to cloud judgment, and for opportunities to slip through your fingers. Immediate obedience requires courage, but it also requires faith, a faith that understands that timing is everything and that divine instruction, when followed promptly, always carries protection and favor. Think of Esther in the Bible. The lives of her people were at stake, and she was in a moment that demanded swift action. She did not delay. She approached the king despite fear, uncertainty, and potential personal risk. That moment of immediate obedience changed history. This is the principle at work when Archangel Michael's warning reaches you today. The moment to act is now. Hesitation can cost more than comfort, it can cost destiny. Immediate obedience is not about blind impulsivity, it is about alignment with truth, courage guided by wisdom, and action fueled by faith. Immediate obedience also reshapes character. Every time you respond quickly to divine instruction, you build spiritual muscle. You learn to trust the invisible currents of guidance that flow through your life. You learn that faith is not theoretical but practical, living and active. It forms resilience, sharpens discernment, and strengthens the alignment between your heart and the divine. Hesitation, by contrast, teaches doubt and breeds regret. The lessons are subtle, but the consequences are monumental. Consider the nature of emergencies. In life, the most significant shifts often require swift response. A medical emergency, a financial window, a spiritual opportunity, they demand action before the moment passes. The same is true in the spiritual realm. When a warning is given, when the Spirit nudges, when Michael's message pierces your awareness, waiting is not neutral, it is costly. Faith exercised immediately opens doors, shifts circumstances, and aligns you with the unfolding purpose that God has orchestrated. There is also a liberating aspect to obedience. When you act promptly, you release the anxiety of indecision. You step into the flow of divine momentum rather than resisting it. Waiting, hesitating, and second-guessing can weigh heavily, but immediate action creates movement. It transforms fear into momentum, confusion into clarity, and delay into opportunity. The act of responding immediately is itself a spiritual principle. Life moves through those who move when the signal comes. And yet immediate obedience is not always easy. It often challenges comfort, security, and pride. It demands humility, a willingness to surrender, and the courage to trust unseen outcomes. But every story in the Bible and every spiritual truth teaches the same lesson. The moment you act, the unseen forces align in your favor. Timing, responsiveness, and courage converge to produce results that would have been impossible through delay. So when the alarm sounds, when Archangel Michael signals, do not bargain with hesitation. Do not wait for more clarity than God has already given. Move, step, respond. Build the ark, leave the familiar, approach the king. Whatever your moment is, respond without delay. Immediate obedience transforms warning into opportunity, fear into faith, and potential into fulfillment. Ultimately, immediate obedience is the hinge on which destiny swings. Those who hear and act without delay enter into the flow of life in a way that cannot be replicated. Hesitation may feel safe, but it is often the very thing that blocks blessing. Act promptly, trust completely, and watch as doors open that no one else could have forced. The moment has come. Will you move when the signal is clear, or will you let the moment pass? The battle is real, and make no mistake about it. There are forces at work that you cannot see with your natural eyes, movements and intentions in the spiritual realm that shape circumstances in ways the ordinary mind cannot grasp. Yet even as this may sound alarming, the truth is that victory is already certain. You are not abandoned, you are not left defenseless, and the outcome has already been written by one who holds all things in his hands. The problem is not the certainty of victory, it is our awareness of it, our willingness to stand firm and claim it amidst the chaos. Most people live as though the struggle is a surprise, as though life should be free of resistance. They forget that life by its very nature is a battlefield. Even the psalmist cried, "Although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." There is an acknowledgement that adversity is real, but it comes with a declaration: fear is unnecessary because protection and victory are available. This is the lens through which we must see the current emergency. The alarm sounded by Archangel Michael is not a prophecy of defeat. It is a summons to recognize that the battle is present, but the outcome belongs to the faithful. Victory begins with perspective. The enemy wants you to focus on the threat, to become paralyzed by the size of the challenge, to believe that your strength is insufficient. But the truth is that the battle is never against you alone. Forces beyond your perception are aligned with you. The divine is orchestrating every movement, every intervention, every provision. Your responsibility is to stand, to remain vigilant, to act with courage and integrity, and to trust that the larger plan is unfolding. This is not passivity, it is disciplined alignment with the spiritual currents that sustain life. Understanding the certainty of victory also frees you from panic. Panic is the tool of the adversary. It clouds judgment, weakens resolve, and misdirects energy. When you recognize that the battle is real but victory is assured, your mind becomes a place of strategy rather than chaos, a place of clarity rather than confusion. You begin to see obstacles not as insurmountable walls but as opportunities to exercise faith, courage, and discernment. Even when storms rage, when opposition seems overwhelming, the knowledge that triumph is already secured transforms how you navigate challenges. Consider David facing Goliath. By human standards, the battle was impossible. He was young, inexperienced, and outmatched. Yet he moved forward with a vision of victory grounded not in his own strength but in the certainty of God's power. The giant loomed large, the army around him trembled, yet he did not falter. Why? Because he understood that the battle was real, but the outcome had already been determined for the faithful. Victory is not always immediate in appearance, but it is inevitable in principle. Your faith, your courage, and your readiness are what allow you to participate in that victory fully. Victory is also communal. Though each person is responsible for their vigilance, you are never isolated in the struggle. The alarm from Michael is a reminder that divine forces are aligned with you, that allies visible and invisible are ready to act on your behalf. To fight as if you are alone is to misunderstand the nature of the battle. There is a rhythm to alignment, a synergy to obedience and courage, a power in moving in step with divine timing. When you recognize this, fear diminishes and action becomes fluid, confident, and resolute. And yet being assured of victory does not eliminate the need for effort. The enemy will test, tempt, and push against you. Resistance will come in many forms, through doubt, fear, distraction, and direct opposition. But the point is not that the battle will be easy. The point is that, no matter the intensity of the struggle, victory is predetermined for those who stand, who persevere, who act with integrity and faith. Each challenge is an invitation to claim what is already yours, to step boldly into the certainty of triumph while navigating the present reality with wisdom. This principle transforms how you engage with life. You no longer react with panic, you respond with purpose. You no longer shrink from opposition, you confront it with courage. You no longer wander in fear. You walk in confidence, knowing that the end has already been secured. The battle may rage, but the victor is not in question. So hear this: the battle is real, but so is the promise of victory. The emergency announced by Archangel Michael is not a reason for despair. It is a summons to rise, to stand firm, to act with courage, and to claim what has already been promised. The enemy can rage, storms can roar, and challenges can press. But those who understand the certainty of victory will never be shaken. The battle is real, but the triumph is inevitable. Will you stand and claim? Let's take a moment to consider the power of prayer and fasting, because when an emergency is announced from the heavens, These are not abstract concepts, they are the levers by which you align yourself with divine intervention. Prayer is the conversation with the invisible, the channel through which your spirit engages with the eternal, and fasting sharpens that conversation. It is not punishment, it is preparation. It is not self-denial for its own sake, it is a discipline that opens your heart, clears your mind, and tunes your soul to hear what is often drowned out by the noise of life. Think about Moses on Mount Sinai. He fasted, he prayed, and in that stillness he received direction that changed the course of a nation. Elijah, weary and hunted, found renewal in the wilderness through the act of focused spiritual discipline. These examples are not historical curiosities, they are blueprints. When Archangel Michael sounds the alarm, he signals that the time for casual spirituality is over. Now is the time for intentional, focused, persistent communication with the divine. Prayer is not simply asking for what you want, it is entering into alignment with what is already moving in the unseen realm. It is acknowledging that there is a larger order at work, and positioning yourself to move in harmony with it. And fasting amplifies that alignment. When you remove physical indulgences, when you simplify, when you create a space of spiritual receptivity, your sensitivity to divine instruction heightens. You begin to recognize subtleties, the inner nudges, the impressions, the whispers, that you might have overlooked. Prayer and fasting together create a field where the invisible becomes perceptible and your response becomes swift and certain. There is also a principle of authority in this discipline. The Bible tells us that certain strongholds can only be broken through prayer and fasting. This is not symbolic language, it is the spiritual law of cause and effect. The enemy will not yield to passive hope, to vague intentions, or to inconsistent. Persistent, focused prayer and fasting are the tools that dismantle opposition, release provision, and shift circumstances in your favor. This is why the alarm is so urgent. It is not enough to be aware, awareness must be coupled with disciplined action. Prayer and fasting are transformative because they reconnect you to your higher self, to your purpose, and to the divine orchestration that governs life. They clear the fog of doubt and fear, replacing it with clarity, courage, and resolve. When you commit to these disciplines in the face of an emergency, you are not simply reacting, you are actively participating in the unfolding plan. You are moving from passive hope to active collaboration with the unseen forces aligned on your behalf. Consider Esther again. The lives of her people hung in the balance, and she called for a fast before she approached the king. That act of spiritual preparation was not a luxury, it was essential. It shifted the trajectory of events, provided clarity, and positioned her to act decisively. Prayer and fasting do not guarantee that obstacles vanish immediately, but they guarantee that you will act with insight, alignment, and authority when the critical moment arrives. It is also important to recognize that prayer and fasting cultivate patience within urgency. They are not about forcing the divine hand, they are about tuning your timing to match the rhythm of the divine. In the emergency signaled by Archangel Michael, there is a tension between immediacy and stillness. You must act, yes, but you must act informed by wisdom, clarity, and spiritual alignment. Prayer and fasting provide that balance, sharpening your perception while sustaining your courage. Many people underestimate the simplicity and the power of this discipline. They believe that complex strategies, frantic effort, or sheer willpower will carry them through. But the spiritual realm responds to alignment, not chaos. Persistent prayer coupled with fasting creates that alignment. It clears the channels, strengthens the connection, and empowers the faithful to respond decisively. In essence, it transforms awareness into action, urgency into purpose, and chaos into clarity. So when the alarm sounds, do not begin the work of prayer, the discipline of fasting, and the practice of listening intently. This is how you position yourself to respond to the emergency with authority, courage, and divine insight. The time is now, the moment is urgent, and the tools are already in your hand. Prayer and fasting are not optional, they are the instruments by which the faithful navigate emergencies and align with victory. Will you take them up, or will you remain unprepared in the face of the alarm? Now let us turn our attention to the urgency in your personal life, because the emergency Archangel Michael is sounding is not abstract, it is deeply personal, it is tailored for you. The warning does not float in some distant realm. it lands squarely in your circumstances, in the spaces of your life that demand awareness and action. Perhaps it touches your relationships, your health, your finances, or your spiritual. The alarm is not a generalized call, it is precise, targeted, and pressing. To ignore it is to risk unnecessary loss, delay, and confusion. To heed it is to position yourself for protection, provision, and breakthrough. Many of us live as if life's emergencies are someone else's concern. We assume that warnings are generic, that threats are distant, and that divine signals are meant for others, not for us. But the reality is far different. Life's emergencies often appear subtly before they escalate. A small argument left unresolved, a health warning ignored, a financial misstep overlooked. These are all moments in which immediate awareness could prevent a cascade of consequences. Archangel Michael's message is a call to sharpen your focus, to examine the areas of your life that are vulnerable, and to act decisively before the emergency reaches full force. Recognizing urgency requires honesty. It demands that you confront the corners of your life where neglect has taken root. Where have you been complacent? Where have you allowed distraction, pride, or fear to erode your preparation? This is not an exercise in guilt, it is an invitation to awareness. The alarm is a spotlight illuminating the areas that require immediate attention. The purpose is protection, alignment, and empowerment. The moment you acknowledge vulnerability, you open the door to divine intervention, to strategy, and to strength that you cannot generate on your own. Consider how emergencies in the physical realm often mirror the spiritual. A minor health symptom, if ignored, can become life-threatening. A small financial misstep, if left uncorrected, can lead to crisis. Similarly, spiritual or relational neglect, if unaddressed, can escalate into profound loss. The call from Archangel Michael is a reminder that vigilance is required not just in principle but in practice. Daily life is a series of decisions and actions, and each one matters. Ignoring the early warning signs may seem convenient in the moment, but it can compound into consequences that demand more than you are prepared to give. The key, then, is proactive engagement. Urgency is not panic, it is informed, intentional action. It is evaluating your personal circumstances with clarity, prayer, and discernment. It is reaching out where reconciliation is needed, taking steps where provision is required, and making adjustments where your path is misaligned with your purpose. The emergency is an opportunity to act wisely before the storm arrives, to move decisively while doors are open, and to position yourself for breakthrough before pressure forces reactive decisions. Personal urgency also calls for prioritization. Not everything that demands your attention is equally important. Discernment, the kind we spoke of earlier, allows you to separate the critical from the trivial, to focus your energy where it will produce lasting impact. When you respond to the true urgencies of your life, you align yourself with divine timing. You prevent avoidable crises and prepare to step fully into the opportunities that emerge in moments of trial. It is also essential to remember that urgency often carries blessing. The pressure of an emergency can sharpen your focus, strengthen your resolve, and draw out capacities you did not know you possessed. Just as fire purifies gold, the emergency moments of life reveal and refine your character. Archangel Michael's warning is not merely a caution, it is an invitation to rise to your fullest potential, to act courageously, and to embrace the transformative power that comes when you respond promptly and faithfully. So do not dismiss the signs in your own life. Examine your circumstances, identify the areas requiring immediate attention, and act without delay. This is the essence of spiritual maturity and practical wisdom. The emergency is real, and it touches your life personally right here, right now. The steps you take today with clarity and faith will determine how effectively you navigate the storms of tomorrow. The urgency is not abstract, it is specific, it is personal. It is your life that requires attention, your actions that determine outcomes, your readiness that invites protection. Will you see the warning and act, or will you allow delay to dictate the path ahead? Let's explore the idea of aligning your spirit with God's timing, because there is a rhythm to life, a cadence to the unfolding of events, and a divine orchestration that operates beyond human comprehension. Often we rush, we push, we strive, we force outcomes believing that action alone will produce results, but timing is everything. The alarm sounded by Archangel Michael is urgent, yes, but it is also precise. It reminds us that there is a moment to act, a moment to wait, and a moment to move in synchrony with the flow of life orchestrated by the unseen hand. Acting too soon or too late can dilute the power of your response, but alignment ensures that your steps are amplified rather than resisted. Consider Joseph in Egypt. Sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned and forgotten, Joseph's journey was long and filled with apparent setbacks. Yet every delay, every trial, every waiting period was part of divine timing. When the moment arrived, he rose to prominence, guided not by chance but by preparation, character, and alignment with God's timing. If he had acted prematurely, if he had sought vengeance or tried to manipulate circumstances, he might have derailed the very plan he was destined to fulfill. Timing is not a passive waiting, it is active alignment, the art of moving in harmony with the flow that underlies reality. The challenge is that human nature resists waiting. We are impatient, impulsive, and often blind to the larger picture. We want to see immediate results, to control outcomes, to assert our will over the circumstances around us. But divine timing operates on a different scale, one that transcends logic and immediate perception. To align with it, you must cultivate patience, attentiveness, and trust. You must listen for the subtle cues, the promptings of the Spirit, and the openings that indicate the right moment to act. Alignment also requires discernment, for timing is inseparable from clarity. To act in the wrong moment is to invite unnecessary conflict, to waste resources, or to miss the fullness of the opportunity. But to act in the right moment, when your spirit is attuned and the circumstances are ripe, is to move with effortless effectiveness. The universe, or the divine orchestration, bends toward those who respond with awareness, who synchronize their actions with the larger rhythm of events. Archangel Michael's emergency call is not simply about action, it is about calibrated action, action that resonates with the divine tempo. There is also a principle of preparation embedded in timing. While waiting is not passive, it is active in subtle ways. Waiting is the time to pray, to reflect, to strengthen your character, and to sharpen your spiritual tools. Waiting is not delay, it is readiness. The person who uses the waiting period wisely is prepared to move decisively when the appointed time arrives. Failing to prepare is not a neutral choice, it is a choice to be caught unready, to act prematurely, or to miss the opportunity entirely. When emergencies arise, we often feel pressure to act immediately, to force resolution, or to bypass waiting. But alignment with God's timing teaches that there is a difference between urgency and haste. Urgency demands attention, haste ignores wisdom. The alarm Archangel Michael delivers is urgent, yes, but it is not reckless. It calls for immediate awareness, spiritual readiness, and discernment, but it also calls for attunement to the right moment to execute the steps that matter most. Timing is not passive. It is a dance between preparation and action, between faith and patience, between discernment and boldness. There is also a peace that comes from alignment. When you trust that your actions are in harmony with the unfolding plan, you move with confidence rather than anxiety. You are not racing against life. You are moving with it. You are not reacting chaotically to circumstances, you are responding with purpose. This is the subtle but transformative power of aligning with divine time. It turns chaos into opportunity, pressure into clarity, and waiting into a form of active preparation. The key, then, is awareness. Listen to the signals, prepare during the intervals, and step boldly when the moment is right. Recognize that every action has its time and that the effectiveness of your actions is determined not just by intention but by timing. The emergency is real, but your response must be calibrated to the unfolding rhythm of life. Timing is everything. Will you move in harmony with it, or will you act in haste and miss the fullness of the moment? Let's speak about prophetic confirmation and spiritual discernment, because in the midst of an emergency, knowing what is true and what is misleading can be the difference between clarity and chaos. Archangel Michael's message is powerful, but power without understanding can be confusing. The Spirit communicates in subtle ways, through visions, impressions, inner promptings, and sometimes through the counsel of others. Recognizing these confirmations is essential. Without them, urgency can become panic, and divine instruction can become misinterpreted. Discernment is the skill of listening deeply, distinguishing the voice of truth from the noise of fear, desire, or distraction. Prophetic confirmation is not always dramatic. It rarely arrives as a neon sign flashing across the sky. More often it is quiet, persistent, and cumulative. You may feel a repeated nudge, notice recurring symbols, or hear the same word of guidance in different contexts. It is the alignment of multiple signals converging to point your attention toward a single truth. God does not usually operate through confusion. Clarity is the hallmark of divine instruction. The repeated confirmations are the universe's, or rather, the Spirit's, way of saying, "This is real. Pay attention. Move with certainty." Spiritual discernment is the companion to confirmation. While confirmations guide, discernment evaluates. It asks, does this align with truth, with character, with wisdom? Discernment tests the promptings against principles that are unchanging. It ensures that the excitement of a message does not blind you to its validity. Without discernment, confirmations can be mistaken for coincidence, intuition for revelation, and inspiration for wishful thinking. The alarm sounded by Archangel Michael demands not just recognition but understanding, not just feeling but interpretation. Confirmation without discernment can mislead. Discernment without confirmation can stagnate. Consider Joseph in Egypt again. He received dreams that were prophetic, repeated, and symbolic, pointing to his future influence. Yet even with these confirmations, he exercised discernment in each situation. He did not act impulsively, he interpreted circumstances carefully, and he moved with wisdom. Confirmation without discernment would have led to recklessness, while discernment without confirmation would have produced inaction. The two together created a path of divine alignment that allowed him to navigate danger and rise to prominence. This principle applies directly to your life. When the emergency is declared, and the Spirit signals, pay attention to recurring patterns, repeated impressions, and signs that echo across your experience. But do not act impulsively on a single impression alone. Compare it to the larger context of truth, wisdom, and principle. Does it lead toward integrity, toward courage, toward alignment with your purpose? Does it resonate with the deeper reality that you sense in your spirit? Confirmation without evaluation is naive. Evaluation without recognition is incomplete. Both are necessary to respond effectively to a warning of this magnitude. Spiritual discernment also protects your energy and focus. There are many competing voices in the world, many influences that seek to distract, mislead, or derail. By honing your discernment, you can filter out what is irrelevant, false, or damaging. You conserve your energy for what matters. You act decisively on what is verified, validated, and aligned with truth. In emergencies, this skill becomes critical. The difference between action that fulfills purpose and action that dissipates effort is clarity. Clarity born of confirmation and discernment working together. Another aspect to consider is the relational dimension. Confirmation often arrives through counsel, community, or mentors who resonate with divine wisdom. Discernment allows you to weigh these voices appropriately, recognizing alignment while filtering bias or agenda. Spiritual guidance, when combined with inner prompting and personal reflection, strengthens the confidence of your response. You move forward not blindly but with both intuition and insight working in harmony. Ultimately, prophetic confirmation and spiritual discernment together create certainty in uncertainty. They provide the framework for understanding the alarm, interpreting the urgency, and taking action without fear. They prevent paralysis by doubt and guard against impulsive mistake. The Spirit speaks, signals align, impressions converge, and the faithful are called to move with confidence, clarity, and courage. So when the warning comes, listen for confirmations, test them with discernment, and allow both to guide your. The emergency is real, but the path forward is illuminated for those who choose to see with spiritual clarity. Confirmation and discernment are your compass. Will you follow it, or will you wander in the fog of indecision? Now we come to the moment where everything converges. Your next move could change everything. This is the culmination of awareness, discernment, preparedness, and alignment. The alarm sounded by Archangel Michael is urgent, but it is not meaningless noise. It is a call to decisive action. The emergency is not something distant or abstract. It is present, tangible, and demanding a response that is both immediate and informed. Every choice you make in this moment has the power to shift your trajectory, to alter outcomes and to define the path of your destiny. Too often we underestimate the weight of our own agency. We wait for the perfect moment or we hope for clarity that never fully arrives. But in reality, the perfect moment is here, in the now, and it requires your courage, your insight, and your faith. Acting decisively does not mean acting impulsively. It means stepping forward with clarity, alignment, and confidence in the preparation you have undertaken. The emergency is a test, not merely of awareness but of action, of whether you are willing to translate understanding into movement. Consider the story of Nehemiah. Jerusalem's walls lay in ruin, and the people were scattered and fearful. Nehemiah could have waited, doubted, or complained about the obstacles. Instead, he prayed, he planned, and then he acted decisively. He understood the urgency, he discerned the signs of opportunity, and he took the steps necessary to rebuild. His movement changed not just his own life but the destiny of an entire community. Your next move, like Nehemiah's, carries that same potential, not just for personal transformation but for impact far beyond yourself. Every emergency has a window of opportunity. That window may be brief, subtle, and easily. Hesitation or indecision allows circumstances to solidify, doors to close, and potential to slip away. But decisive action, taken in alignment with awareness, confirmation, and discernment, opens doors that no one else can force open. This is the difference between being swept along by events and being a participant in shaping them. Your next move is the fulcrum between chaos and breakthrough, between stagnation and progress, between fear and empowerment. To act effectively, you must integrate everything we've discussed: awareness of the alarm, the armor of preparation, discernment, obedience, faith, prayer, fasting, urgency in your personal life, and alignment with divine timing. Each element contributes to the power of your. Acting without preparation is reckless. Preparation without action is wasted. Action without discernment is dangerous. But when these elements converge, you move with authority, insight, and purpose. You move not in panic, not in haste, but in resonance with the forces that govern life, guided by the signal of the Spirit and the certainty of divine order. Your next move also carries responsibility. Emergencies are not neutral, they expose the consequences of choice. Every action you take, or fail to take, has ripple effects. The weight of this is not meant to paralyze you but to empower. Recognizing responsibility is recognizing the power you already possess to influence outcomes, protect what matters, and claim the alignment and blessing that is available when you act decisively. Consider the small but decisive actions in life that produce profound results. A phone call that prevents a misunderstanding, a timely word that restores a relationship, a single step toward opportunity that shifts your career or finances, a prayer that interrupts a spiritual stronghold. These may seem minor in the moment, but in the grand orchestration of life, they are pivotal. The emergency demands that you notice them, seize them, and act with the courage and clarity that the Spirit provides. Fear will rise. Doubt will whisper. The unknown will loom large. But remember, the alarm is not designed to frighten you, it is designed to awaken you. Action, informed by awareness, discernment, and preparation, transforms fear into momentum. It transforms anxiety into clarity. It transforms uncertainty into decisive movement. Your next step, however small it may seem, is the pivot upon which your future turns. So now the question rests with you. Will you respond, fully aware and fully aligned, taking the action that changes the trajectory of your life? Or will you wait, letting hesitation dictate the outcome, letting the emergency pass unheeded? Every delay is a choice, every movement is an opportunity. The alarm has sounded, the preparation is at hand, and the path forward is visible for those willing to step. Your next move is not trivial, it is decisive, it is defining. It is the action that separates awareness from impact, potential from fulfillment, and fear from triumph. Will you step forward, or will you let the moment pass?